course.
Arsenal's performance was full of desire, hunger, energy, willingness, being bold on their decisions, and I think Arteta will take a lot of pride of how they played. Now, the opposition didn't do all of that, didn't do any of it, and Frankie Lampard says talks about his players and their responsibility for the first 45 minutes, where they were so off the pace. I mean, so many of their players. Kovacic was way off the pace. I thought, looking at Timo Werner, I've mentioned in recent weeks to you, Nat. I mean, he's been subbed at half-time. Frank's got a real problem at the football club. And I'm not convinced that people will say Arteta's seriously under pressure. I think Frank's under every bit and even more pressure as a Chelsea manager.
Even more than Arteta?
Yes, exactly. Because think of the history of the football club. Think of the owner, how he sacks people quite comfortably. Think of that he spent 220 million. Think that he's brought in a young lad from Germany, Havertz, who's not even in the team and struggled. Think of Timo Werner, who spent a lot of investment, huge wages, struggled. You're under pressure as a Chelsea manager to challenge, because when you're given 220 million, I guarantee you that conversation before the start of the season would have been, what do you need to challenge Liverpool and Man City? That conversation would have happened.
But at one stage, they were challenging. It looked as though it was all going quite well for Chelsea. So what has happened in the last few games?
Well, they've obviously lost a number of games. Nat, look, the two German lads have been a problem, who I mentioned, because they've not played well. And I think he changes a bit too much. I think there's too many positions. Centre-half position, there was change after change after change. And now he's found a partnership in Zuma and Silva. The goalkeeper was an issue. That was a 70-odd million pound player. Wasn't his. Fair enough. He wanted to change. That's a normal decision by a manager. Then he brings in a fullback for 50 million who struggled yesterday. Was he fit? I'm not so sure. He didn't look fit. Saka really gave Ben Chilwell a real run around.
Lazarus, as everyone was referring to him.
So Reece James struggled, didn't quite look fit. There was a number of problems yesterday. And look, I know people say that's a reaction to one game. I don't think Chelsea have played nowhere near as well as I think they're capable of. They struggled against West Ham, won it 3-0, but at times didn't quite look right. They're still, they beat Leeds quite comfortable. Well, anyone who plays Leeds knows that it's either going to be 3-0 or you could get beat. So, it's the way they play. They've been beaten, really, quite comfortably by nearly a reserve team. Arsenal's reserves. If you think about half of that team wouldn't have been playing. Obviously, they had issues with certain players being taken out of the firing line for whatever reason. There was something. Yeah, we heard that information yesterday. But that was at least 4 or 5 players of Arsenal that probably wouldn't have been playing. And if you're looking at quality on either side and looking at the quality of Chelsea's squad and looking at Arsenal's, they're a million miles apart. Arsenal have got a massive rebuilding job to do. Chelsea have got nearly a complete team. In every position, you can name 2 players. I'm not sure about the captain. What's happened to Azpilicueta? Why has he become discarded so readily? I thought there was a lot of things. I don't think Frank is... I think his reaction, he's got his arms folded a hell of a lot, and I think he's quite an angry manager, and rightly so at his performance. But you've got to be careful how you handle a really big squad with a lot of players who have achieved a lot in the game. And I'm not quite sure that making scapegoats and pulling people in and out of the fire so readily, I think you've got to be really careful of doing that. It was a poor performance.